All right. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today's webinar, What Elite Universities Are Looking For. So my name is Joanna Dwason. I'm a head of admin of the Sapiente Education, and I will be one of your moderators this evening. On behalf of Sapiente Education and Education Resources Network, we're delighted to have you with us. Whether you're a student, parent, or educator, we hope today's webinar will provide valuable insight into universities' admissions, building a strong academic profile, and preparing for future careers in AI and technology. So before we begin, I'd like to share a few quick guidelines to help us run the session smoothly. So please keep your microphone muted throughout the presentation to minimize the background noise. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please write it down at the Google chat box there at the bottom on the right corner. And also to help us direct your questions to the right speaker, please begin your message with the speaker's name, for example, Dr. Max, and the question. And Raksha and I will be collecting all of your questions throughout the session, and we'll be answering as many as possible during the live Q&A in the end. So we kindly ask everyone to be respectful and avoid interrupting speakers while they're presenting. So now let's have a look at today's agenda. So we'll begin with Dr. Massimiliano Patocchiola. So he will be discussing on building a strong academic profile through research, and then we'll move into Amer Mirza into insights into university admissions, and then followed by Nadim Lom for future careers in AI and technology, and we'll end it with open Q&A. So now let's welcome our first speaker, Dr. Massimiliano Patocchiola.
Thank you, Joanna. So I can share my screen maybe, so I can share my slides. All right, so give me 1 second and I will be there. Okay. So can you confirm that you can see my slides? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you everybody for attending this webinar. I'm Max Patocchiola. I'm the CEO and founder of Sapiente Education, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to go beyond grades and what top university are really looking for in 2026. So this first slide is a little bit of a background about me. I got a PhD in AI robotics from the University of Plymouth. Then I was a researcher for many years at the University of Cambridge, and I was collaborating also with companies like Microsoft, Snapchat, Huawei. I was also working with the Sam Altman project called Word in San Francisco and in Germany. I'm the vice president of the Human Economic Forum, and also board member of Randstad AI for Humanities. My main topic of research is AI, robotics, and overall machine learning. I have more than 30 research papers published in international conferences and journals, including Spotlight Awards. Now, I have said this not to brag about myself, but just to let you know a little bit more about my background, because today I'm going to talk about research, and I was a researcher, and so I think that this could be something valuable for you. So I would like to start with this slide, where I'm going to talk a little bit about why grades alone are no longer enough. So nowadays, of course, students are focusing a lot on getting very good grades, but this is just the starting point. So if you apply for universities like Cambridge, Oxford, or for Ivy Leagues in the US, then grades alone are no longer enough because all your competitors will have perfect grades. So you have to show something else. In particular, what universities are now looking for are some form of independent intellectual curiosity, or some form of critical thinking and problem-solving skills that you have been showing during your career, and some commitment beyond the classroom as well. Of course, some evidence of long-term academic engagement. Original projects, some meaningful research experience, these are all valuable, very valuable things. Now, what are today's challenges? Is that there are a lot of applicants that are overusing AI. So there are a lot of AI-generated applications that are typically not very well received. Authenticity, originality are decreasing. This is also a negative thing. And there is a lack of differentiating factors between admissions. So all applicants start to look the same, as we said. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to focus on research and publication. I will try to explain to you why this really matters. So research and publication, first of all, is providing a stronger distinction, right? So if you can show that you have published a paper, that you have been working towards a paper, then this is, of course, a factor that can distinguish you from the pool of candidates that are applying with you at the same university. And this offers a sort of concrete academic output that sets you apart from the other high-achieving peers. Then there is also the factor that is academic depth, right? So through research, students can also explore subjects beyond the classroom, and this shows curiosity, right? And develops also critical thinking skills. Additionally, this is not just something that you should do because you like it. This, of course, should be the main motivation, but it also has been shown that, empirically speaking, if you have a publication, your chances of getting accepted in one of these universities can increase quite importantly. Now, we'll spend a little bit of time on this slide, just because there are a lot of common myths and mistakes the students do when they try to do research, especially when they try to do research alone. Now, as I told you, I published many papers, so I can tell you exactly how it should be done and what are the common mistakes that I've seen in other students. So here you can see a list of common mistakes. So let's start with the first one. So many students try to write a paper alone. They try to write a paper without an expert mentorship. Now, this is a mistake because research is a very advanced skill that you have to develop with years of experience, right? So trying to do something so advanced alone, of course, is not ideal. It can bring to so many mistakes along the way. So having an expert mentor guiding you through this process is very, very important. Many candidates are also trying to rely too much on AI-generated content. And this is also wrong, of course, because, maybe most of you have experienced this, right? If you see an output generated by ChatGPT, it typically has a specific frame, some common sentences, common words that are used over and over again. Now, imagine that you are reviewing the applications of different students. If you start to see these words used by completely independent students from completely different countries, well, this is not good, right? It's a sign that the student has been using AI-generated text. And this is typically already a negative. Then, of course, there is also literature review, right? So weak or incomplete literature reviews are also a negative factor. Literature review means to basically read as many papers as you can about the specific topic and try to understand how the literature is structured for that specific subject and topic of research. Many times, the student just read 1 or 2 or 3 papers, maybe 5 papers, and they think that they are done. Actually, you have to read up to 50, even 100 papers, depending from the topic and subject. You have to really understand those papers. You have to really dig deeper into those papers, try to understand them. Another common problem is choosing low quality or non-peer-reviewed journals. So there are many students that come to us and they tell us, I have already written a paper alone, and I'm trying to publish this paper on my school journal. Now, unfortunately, this is not going to work because the school journals, typically, they are not peer-reviewed. What does it mean, peer review? It means that once you finish your paper, you send it to a journal, and this journal will call different reviewers, different experts in that sector that will be reading your paper and will be providing a feedback. Sometimes the feedback will be also pretty harsh. So this, psychologically speaking, also you have to be quite strong. But this is the spirit here is to progress science, right? So we want to move forward. We want to learn something new. So all the critics has to be constructive in some sense. Once the peer review is complete, the manuscript can come back to the authors, and now the authors have to review it, right? So we will see a little bit about this later on. But the idea is that if you send this work to a journal that is not peer-reviewed, this is fundamentally useless in terms of strength of the paper that you have written. And finally, many times I see students focusing just on publication. They just think that they need a publication because they want to apply. This is already, it's the wrong way of moving forward here, because you should really care about the content, about the research itself, what you're writing about. This should be your main point of concern here, not the fact that you want to publish because just for the sake of publishing. Now, what university instead value here is, of course, a rigorous research process. They want to see that the student has been growing during his research career. They want to see the student maybe having published maybe a couple of papers. You can publish a paper already when you're very young, 13, 14, and then maybe you can publish a paper later on when you are about to apply to universities, and you can show also that you have been building on top of the first publication. So this typically show that you have like a research path in your career. You have been thinking about these problems for many years. You have been trying to solve it from different angles, maybe collaborating with different researchers. They also look for critical analysis and original thinking. So your research should also be original, and this is also quite important. Of course, you want a credible publication pathways. As I said, you need a peer-reviewed journal, and you want evidence of genuine intellectual growth. So you want to see that there has been this growing path, this growing trajectory in the student. And finally, one important point is collaboration. So why I've said at the beginning, many students are trying to write a paper alone. So this is fundamentally wrong, because research is a collaborative effort. In modern papers, for instance, in physics or even in artificial intelligence, often you can see papers with dozens of authors, right? You can see 20 authors. Some physics papers, they may have hundreds of authors, right? So some papers are really, generated by a strong collaboration between different authors. And the guidance of a senior mentor is fundamental here. Now, what's the anatomy of a high-quality research? I would say that at the beginning, and this is something that should actually drive the student along all the experience, is curiosity, right? This is the engine of research. The student needs to be curious about something, has to try to challenge assumption, right? Try to read as much as possible, develop independent idea, and develop these fundamental critical thinking skills that nowadays are getting weaker and weaker, right? Then from curiosity, then you go to a research question. So you have to find a strong research question. This is actually many of my supervisors during my PhD and my postdoc career. They were telling me, Max, once you find the right research question, you have half of the work. So find the right question that you want to answer is fundamental, because it sets the boundaries of your problem. Once you have defined a clear objective, you have defined the scope of the problem, then now you can start to identify variables, and you can start to define experiments, for instance. So finding the right research question is, half of the work. And then once you have done this, now you can start your investigation, right? So this is the fun part where, there are experiments or there is literature review that has to be done. So this is the proper, hard work, leg work that needs to basically finalize the paper before it's sent to a journal. So curiosity, research questions, investigation. Now, another problem that I often see when students apply for our programs is that they are about to apply for universities. Maybe they want to start to apply in September, and they come to us in June or July. Now, this is too late already, because most of the papers need a quite long preparation. So just to write the paper for a college level applicant, the time could be 3 to 4 months just to write it. Now the paper has to be submitted, right? You submit the paper to the journal, and this can 1 to 5 months for the paper to be assigned to reviewers, and for the reviewers to review your paper, and then send it back for this stage, revision and resubmission. So just 1 to 5 months could take just this step here. It's typically the most time-consuming step. And then there is all the phase of revisions, where the authors have to see what the reviewers have written about the paper, and they have to modify, improve the paper to make it more robust. After this phase, the paper can be sent again to the journal, and then hopefully, if everything goes well, the paper is accepted and published. Now, in some cases, the paper could be rejected, right? So the modification that the authors did are not good enough. So in that case, there are different ways of dealing with these type of situations. The paper could be improved and can be submitted or to the same journal or to another one. But believe me, when you are doing serious research, rejections, there are rejections, right? So this is also something that strengthens your personality, your ego, because you are challenging, you're fighting with ideas here. Okay, now I would like to talk a little bit about how we are trying to solve all these problems and with our programs. So in our programs, we are trying to design something that can solve all these issues and can be appropriate for students in the range 13, 23 years old. In our case, we have mentors from Cambridge, Oxford, and other leading institutions, so we have a very high quality bar for mentors. Here you can see some of the institutions that are represented by our faculty of mentors at Sapiente Education. We have around 35 carefully selected mentors from institutions like Cambridge, Oxford, University of Toronto, Edinburgh, Yale, MIT, and so on. And also companies like Microsoft, Google, Walt Disney, and some of our mentors were even in the Forbes 30 under 30 list. So one program that we provide for research and publication is called Mastery. This is our flagship program. It includes 15 sessions with a mentor and 5 with a research assistant. So this is, as I say, it is a group work, right? So the mentor, the student, and the research assistant all together work on the paper. It's a long-term program, can be up to 4 months, and then the paper is submitted to a peer-reviewed journal in this case. This is recommended for students that are 16, 23, but we also have the younger student actually following these programs. So have the Scholar one-to-one. This is also a 2 to 4 months program. It's a bit shorter, so you have sessions with the mentor, 4 with the research assistant. But the goal is the same, is to publish a paper in a research journal. And in this case, you know, it's a bit more appropriate for a younger student into 16 that have maybe the first experience with research. This program could be appropriate. We also have intensive programs. These are not aimed at publication, but they are 2 weeks program, but they are aimed at building research skills. So this could be appropriate if the student, you know, wants to build a more robust knowledge before trying to submit a paper. Okay, so just to conclude here, to wrap it up, as part of the webinar, we'll provide a fee reduction of 10% over all our programs. So this is for course, whoever of you will reach out to us during this week until Sunday, 5th of July. And we also have something interesting coming up soon, especially in the UAE. We will have some bootcamps, in-person bootcamps, where we will talk a bit more about how to do research, how to write papers, and apply to top universities. We are also working on some internships, both in industry and university labs, and this could be both virtual internships or in-person internships. So some of these things will be coming up pretty soon with Sapiente Education. So this concludes my presentation. Now, if you have any questions, as Joanna said at the beginning, please write it down in the chat, and I will be more than happy to answer this question at the end of the session. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Max. That was fascinating overview of how research can help students develop critical thinking, demonstrate academic curiosity, and build profile that extends to beyond grades alone. So as there were few more people that actually joined us, I just would like to briefly go over again the few guidelines. Please keep your microphone muted throughout the session, and also, as I mentioned earlier, to help us run it smoothly, kindly put your questions in the Google Meet chat at the right corner at the bottom, and just use the template like Dr. Max and then your questions. And then Raksha and I will be collecting all of your questions, and we'll be answering as much as possible during the live Q&A session in the end. So for our next speaker, we have Omar Mirza. So he's actually the CEO of Education Resources Network. So today he'll actually walk us through the university admission process, including selecting the right institutions and understanding accommodation and visa requirements. So Omar, thank you for being with us. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you everyone for taking out the time to participate in this webinar today. I hope you find it extremely useful. So I will jump on to my presentation so everyone can see it. Just give me a second. I hope everyone can see it.
Not yet. I think it's loading probably.
Please let me know if everyone can see it clearly. Yeah, it's all good?
Yes, now yes.
Okay, so There we go. Okay, guys. So basically, my company is ERN, Education Resources Network. We've been around for about, I would say, 21 years now, and we have presence in 3 regions: South Asia, Middle East, and Europe. At the main purpose of establishing ERN for me in 2005 was to have an advisory service for students to guide them on what is the best fit for them, the right education institute, academically, financially, and looking at the overall scope. So that was the main purpose of developing ERN in 2005. What we do, and I'll touch a bit more in detail on each of these things in the next slide, is 6 or 7 main things. So obviously, university and course advice. These days, of course, it's a very difficult thing to see what subject should we do now will be relevant in the next 3, 5, 6 years. I mean, like I was discussing with the team earlier, we don't plan now for 10, 15, 20 years because the situation is so dynamic. Employability is changing a lot. Graduate prospects are changing a lot. So we plan accordingly. So we are there to guide you on course advice according to your academic background, that what you do now will be relevant at least for the time that you graduate and will make you employable. In addition to that, obviously, we provide other services which are post-application, which includes visa, pre-departure, accommodation, English language testing, or other testing if you require SAT, Duolingo, or any sort of additional test required for the admission. So I have teams in each of my offices that will help you with the registration as well as preparation. Like I mentioned, 20 years experience, and so any student applying through a school to a university, a partner university on our panel, we don't have any charges, because obviously these days students can go apply online themselves. So what's the benefit of us? So we actually partner with the universities. We have about 60 odd in the UK, 50 in the US, a handful in Canada and UAE. When I say partner with the universities, if you go on the websites, for example, of St. Andrews University or Durham in the UK, and you search for local representative, you will find our name. So that's how we're official partners of them. And then obviously applying with us will help you that not just processing an application, but in terms of follow-up, connecting you with someone in the university, scholarships, even not just in the admissions team and helping you apply and get flexibility in the grade, but you might have queries on accommodation, sports, and all that. So we help in all in this connection, basically, with the university. And we are basically a one-stop shop. So when you come to us, from the start of counseling to applying accommodation visa, we'll take care of everything. I touched on this earlier. So like I mentioned, when you come to us, obviously there are a few aspects one has to consider, parents and students, that, what is the right fit for you in terms of academically, the subject you've done, what should you do that's relevant, what will be relevant in the job market, what is financially fit for you, because obviously for me, you have to make sure that the degree you're going for is actually an investment and gives you a good return on it once you graduate. So we'll help you with that as well. Once that's all decided and as to where you want to go when you selected the universities, then my application team will help you prepare your application. When I say prepare, it just doesn't mean filling out a form. It means, helping you with your academics, with your CV, extracurriculars. Max obviously has explained about how research is important and now extracurriculars of an application. So universities look at the holistic application. So they look at academics, they look at your sports, extracurricular achievements, research background, all these things for top universities matter a lot. There's not really a ratio that 50% of this and 25 of that, but mixed, all of it does matter a lot. And then obviously, like I mentioned, in terms of the team, once they've applied for you, then receiving your offer, securing your visa, accommodation, we do all that. This is just a list of a few universities we work with. The ones in green highlight St. Andrews, and then the other ones are Russell Group universities. Russell Group is like the equivalent of Ivy League in the US, so top universities. The other ones I've highlighted here are campus-based universities, because in London, most of the universities, top ones even like LSE, UCL King's, they're based in buildings that are scattered across central London. But then outside of London, you have purpose-built campuses of universities where you have 150, 160 acres, where you have teaching, accommodation, sports, all the facilities available. And some students prefer that. So we have both options. These are some US ones as well. What are options in the UK? So basically, if you're doing American high school curriculum, which is 12 years of education or equivalent, and you plan to go to the UK, you'll have to do a 1-year foundation course and then 3-year bachelor's, because the bachelor's in the UK is 3 years. So your degree will come 4 years, kind of like going to the US or Canada. Then obviously there are options where students sometimes ask me, okay, I've started the degree in my home country. I've done a year. Can I transfer and get credits and finish off in the UK, whether it's 2 or 3 years? That's possible as well. So we help with credit transfer applications too. Tuition fee ranges. Of course, engineering, clinical, these are the higher fee brackets. When we talk about engineering, we talk about computer science, AI, civil, mechanical, chemical engineering. Arts is mostly business management, international relations, law, these kind of things. And clinical is obviously medicine, biotechnology, stem cell research, all these kind of things. So this is the average fee, the range. This does not include accommodation. That varies. Obviously, London is expensive, probably 30% more than outside London. So that is seen once you decide the university. A lot of students also and parents ask this, can we work in the UK? Yes. If you're a full-time student, during your term time, you can work 20 hours a week. In your vacation, which is about a month in the Christmas break, 3 weeks in spring and 3.5 months summer, you can work full-time. You're allowed to do that in the UK. Accommodation I touched on earlier. So there are 4 types. You have obviously homestay and lodgings where you can stay with a family, a British family, and they'll give you a room in it, which is not that popular. But then you have halls of residence, which is university-owned accommodation. So when you get the offer, the university will get you in touch with the accommodation team who will give you options that are available according to your budget, whether you want meals or without meals, and they'll help you select it. Otherwise, you can also choose a private accommodation. There are 2 types. One are private accommodation buildings owned by student accommodation companies, which only students are living there. Otherwise, you can have your own private flat in any area, and all these 4 categories my accommodation team will help you with. This is my details. Of course, I've touched on a few things right now in terms of what we do, in terms of counseling students, applying, preparing a good application for you, post-application services. These are all a part of it. One thing I'd like to highlight, which is not on the slide, is that career counseling. Of course, I think Max mentioned that they do a lot of that, and it's very important that when you are selecting your institute, you do research work, but not just that. You do research on the institute, and you see that, does this match what I've done so far, and does this match my future aims? Those 2 things have to connect together in order for you to succeed in your degree, and not just that, but succeed in getting a good job and increasing your chances of employability. So I'll leave it here. My details are on there, and obviously you can see that my background as well, the Facebook, Instagram pages. So after the session, I'll be happy to take any questions. And thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Amar. Your insight have provided a practical roadmap for students and parents that are navigating one of the most important decisions in the student's academic journey. So now I would like to introduce our final speaker this evening, Nadim Lone, founder of Coder Search AI. So today, Nadim will share what's actually changing in the age of AI, what employers are increasingly looking for beyond a traditional CV, and of course, how the student can begin developing their skills that will prepare them for the careers for tomorrow. So Nadim, thank you for joining with us today. The floor is yours.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Joanna. And hello, everyone. By way of a very brief background, an introduction, again, my name is Nadim. I've been in the global staffing industry for about 20 years. And 10 years ago, I started an AI-specific recruiting company. So I'm going to attempt today to predict the future, which is evolving on an almost weekly basis at this point. But let me just bring up my presentation. Bear with me a moment. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So first of all, we've heard from Omar Massimiliano on university applications and research mode thinking. My segment focuses on what happens after.
I can just see it's not here.
Because it turns out the edge that gets you into a great university actually is very similar edge that gets you hired into the kind of work you'll enjoy and the kind of work that is worth doing. One thing to make clear up front, nobody, including me, knows exactly which jobs will exist or what they'll look like in 5 years, let alone 10 or 15. If anyone is telling you that with certainty, they're usually selling something. What I can offer is what I see from the field, what companies are starting to look for and how that is changing. We are still very early in how AI is being used at work. Most of what we're seeing now, you can think about it as the first chapter and last. My examples come mostly from tech and AI hiring because that's my field and that's where AI has been used the most. But more and more, I'm seeing the same patterns appear in other jobs too. So please treat what I say as an indicator. Some form of AI is going to sit inside most of the work that you do, whatever industry you end up in, whether that's medicine, law, finance, engineering, creative, or whatever that may be. So what are some of the shifts? The first is that the standard graduate CV no longer wins by itself. A good degree from a good university used to be enough, pretty much guaranteed you a strong starting job. And that's not quite true anymore. There are more graduates than there used to be, with fewer entry-level jobs being offered right now. And what remains are actually asking for more than they used to. And that's the hard thing to say. AI is starting to take over a lot of the basic, repeatable work that entry-level hires used to be valued for, like the drafting, summarizing, and pulling the data together. I won't pretend that's not real. But here's the thing I want you to hold on to, is that in my opinion, this can't last. Not because the economy will bounce back or that AI won't start playing a larger role over time, but because it's risky. A company that stops hiring and growing its talent over time will have no seniors in 5 to 10 years. And that's where the next generation of leaders is supposed to come from. Having said that, I think it's important to plan for the world we're in today. And it's an opportunity too. The bar has been raised, but the students who clear that bar are walking into a market which right now is saying that it's short of them. The scarce thing is no longer the degree, it's someone that can already do what the higher bar is asking for. And that's not necessarily a bad point. It's the starting point if you know what to work on. It's also why I feel Sapiente and the work they're doing matters. The students who stand out now are the ones that have gone deeper into their subject before they even apply for a role, who've practiced thinking like a researcher, not just thinking like an exam taker. The kind of thinking is not just useful for an application, but it's the thinking you need once you're actually in the job. The focus on actual business outcomes is higher than it has ever been. Businesses are asking, what can take us less time than it used to? What is actually making us more money? And there's a real focus on this. Because the standard CV doesn't tell employers what they need to know in that respect, they're testing for whether you can produce outcomes in conversations. They want to understand how you think, not just what you know. I've personally witnessed interview panels spend 5 minutes discussing the knowledge and skills and experience of an interviewee, but then half an hour discussing how they actually think, checking whether you can make good calls, not just whether you can recite the right answer. And this just isn't my view. PwC, one of the world's big consulting firms, published a study just 2 weeks ago, and they looked at over 1 billion job adverts. They found that entry-level jobs that touch AI now require senior-level human skills like leadership, judgment, taste, and creativity 7 times more often than it did in 2019. The job market is asking 18 to 21-year-olds to come in with the qualities it used to ask for 25 to 28-year-olds. One idea worth introducing here is systems thinking. As AI starts to make execution cheaper, actually doing the work, what employers want to see is the ability for you to see how things connect. Not just can you do the task, but do you understand how the task fits into the bigger picture? Let me show you what I mean. 2 students with identical CVs. They went to the same school, they got the same grade, same A-levels, same Duke of Edinburgh. They both volunteered at a food bank. The first had great work ethic, followed instructions well, and served as well as anyone. The second did all of that, but they also spoke to the people being served, asked them about their experience and how it could be better. They then thought about the structure underneath everything. How was the food purchased? How was it prepared? How was it distributed? And where she could see a way to improve it. She suggested a change. And one of them, a redesigning of the rota, ended up both improving the service and cutting food waste. So when she talked about it at interview, she didn't just say, I volunteered. She said, I noticed something, I tried a change, and it worked. I'm not sure how well it will scale, however. It was the same starting point, but it had a different outcome, which allowed a stronger articulation of that experience. She didn't choose a better activity. She engaged with the same one, but differently. She understood the people involved, the problem she was solving, and the system around it. You'll hear a lot about critical thinking. It's been mentioned earlier in today's talk as well, and that's the right instinct. The version that's becoming more important in businesses is system thinking, not just judging whether something is true or it's argued well, but seeing how the parts connect, who's involved, what's being solved, and how the whole piece fits together. So in that interview, what was the interviewee saying and what were people hearing? There are four main things, and it's similar to what demanding hiring managers are now listening for. Curiosity, again, that has been mentioned earlier today. So the theme is that similarities in your way of thinking whilst you're studying is going into the workplace. Curiosity that goes one layer deeper than expected. The second is your ability to explain your work clearly, what many are calling storytelling. How you are with other people, how well you can understand them, how well you can work with them. And four, honest uncertainty. The world is changing at breakneck pace. Being able to say, I don't know yet, but here's how I'd find out is increasingly valuable. And the thing is, you can't really perform these in an interview. You can't revise for them the night before. They're not things you say, they're things you've built, things you've done. And a good interview can tell the difference. The good news is that building them is surprisingly concrete. So let me give you things you can start to do now. It's not just the subject you pick, but it's how you engage with it. Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, said something that stuck with me recently. Develop deep expertise in a field that fascinates you, and at the same time, develop AI fluency so you can apply that expertise in ways that just were not possible before. And what does that mean in plain English? If you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a biologist, a designer, an engineer, that's fine. What's not changed is that. What's changed is what you need to do within the path that you're on. And please don't be intimidated. A recent survey found that fewer than half of teenagers felt prepared to actually use AI tool at work. So if you don't feel ready yet, you're actually with the majority. The point isn't to be ahead of everyone else. The point is to be the kind of person who notices what the work needs and goes one layer deeper than expected. So here's a few practical things that you can start doing. One, go deep on something, but choose a depth that stays with you. Pick something specific, go further than your peers would. And most importantly, pay attention to the skills that you're building along the way, because those underlying skills are what will stay with you when the world changes shape, and it will. If you're fascinated, you're in biology and you're fascinated by how memory works in an octopus, that's brilliant. But notice what you're really learning is experimental design, statistics, and behavioral research. These skills are valuable in dozens of industries. And the same is true in other directions. If you want to be a corporate lawyer, that's great, but specialize in something within it. The general version of a safe career is changing, and it's what is most exposed to AI. The specialist version is actually the safer path. So depth in a niche is now safer than it used to be. And here's the other half. Alongside the depth, get genuinely fluent with these AI tools. Not as a gimmick, but as a thing that multiplies whatever you build. The doctor who's good with AI and uses it in the right way will outwork the one who isn't. The same for the lawyer and engineer. You don't need to be a programmer. You need to be the person in your field that's actually good with the tools, whilst other people are still poking at them nervously. And remember that survey, fewer than half of teenagers feel ready. It's not a warning, it's an opening. And it's not a separate skill from your subject, it's actually a multiplier of it. Secondly, build things, finish things, and put them online. This one I honestly think is underrated. Build something. It could be a blog, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be a project, it could be a weekly newsletter on something you're fascinated in, a small project you tried. The point isn't its reach. The point isn't how many likes you get. It's the act of finishing something and putting it online where someone could see it. And this is becoming more important than ever. Your online presence is more and more important. Employers Google you, they look at your LinkedIn, your GitHub, your writing long before they interview you. A teenager with a small but real body of work is ahead of one that only has grades to show. So similar to what Max was saying earlier about starting to research early is a clear differentiator, and this is translating into the workplace. Thinking in systems we talked about, and also importantly, it's about getting good with people. Talking to them, reaching out is important. In a world where most of hiring runs through AI automated applications, similar to the applications for universities we were talking about earlier, the candidates who actually talk to humans stand out more than they used to, not less. Most people who got the job didn't just get it from submitting their CV. Someone picked up the phone and someone talked to them. That's literally my job, and every senior person that I know says the same. So find people doing the work that you think you might want. Be polite, be specific, and don't ask, can you give me a job? But ask things like, what surprised you about your first year in your career, and what's your feeling about the future of your work? You don't need hundreds of contacts. You need 3, 4, or 5 people in your field that know your name and think that you're curious. The second half is talking to people is harder, and it matters more the further you go. It's actually how you are with people once you're in the room. It's quieter than you'd think. It's not being the loudest or the most charismatic, but can you disagree with someone without making them defensive? Can you yourself take feedback without flinching? Can you read what's actually going on in a room between people and bring out the best in the person next to you? These used to be called soft skills, secondary skills. The parents and teachers amongst us will probably know that used to be in most job description as something that was at the end, but that's backwards now. In a world where AI is doing more of the execution, the work that is growing is actually the world of connecting. And these are the most human, least automatable things that we have, and they're learnable. And they're the difference between someone you'd work with once and someone you'd want on every team. Explaining your work. We touched on storytelling earlier. One habit you can start doing today is being able to explain anything you've worked on succinctly. What you did, why it mattered, what surprised you. Practice it out loud. Do it over the dinner table. Think and talk about a project and start to articulate that. People like a good story and they engage with the topic better when we hear them. If a 15-year-old can talk about a school project, a 20-year-old can talk about a research paper, and a 23-year-old can talk about a piece that it did in front of a hiring manager. The form of the question doesn't change, but the depth of the answer and the way you tell the story is what is differentiating people in the world of work. So if you do these things, go deep, build something, think in systems, get good with people, and learn to explain your work, what does that actually set you up for? I'll show you where this is already heading. Some of the fastest growing roles right now barely existed 2 to 3 years ago, and they're very real. We see them on a weekly basis. AI adoption roles, the people that point the technology in the direction that has the best outcomes for a business. AI governance, the people that decide how an organization uses AI responsibly, what's allowed, where the risks fall. There's a role called a forward deployed engineer. These are people who sit between technical teams and customers. They're technical enough to build, but human enough to understand what the business actually needs. Translator roles. These are people that focus on understanding the people within a business and what they actually do. Then sit between them and the people trying to build things that makes their work easier. These are all live, well-paid positions, and they're growing fast. And they all use the subject depth, the system thinking, the articulation and storytelling, and working with people that we've been talking about throughout this talk. I can't promise you the exact job titles that are going to be there in 10 or 15 years. That part, honestly, nobody knows. But here's what I think will last and what they all have in common. Every one of these roles that are emerging, they sit between things, between the technology and the people, between what AI can do and what a business actually needs. And that's why I feel the titles will keep changing, but that bridge won't. Finally, Whoops, excuse me. Finally, if you take anything else away tonight, take these, go deep on something, build, think in systems, and try to finish something. Talk to people and learn to explain your work succinctly. The patterns I've shared, that aren't just my opinions, they're what a billion job adverts are showing and what most of the demanding employers in the world are looking for, and I know this firsthand. The work Sapiente and ERN are pointing you towards isn't just preparation for university admissions, it's actually the earliest practice of the exact things employers are now looking for. Research compounds, and the earlier you start, the further it's going to take you. In any case, I hope that was helpful, and thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Nadim, for those insightful perspective on what's actually changing in the age of AI, and also for sharing the skills and mindset that will help students thrive in tomorrow's career. So now we've reached the Q&A portion for today's webinar. So firstly, I would like to thank everyone who has submitted the questions. So Raksha will be we'll be answering those, we'll be mentioning those questions directly to the speaker. So over to you, Raksha.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, everyone who have come forward to put their questions in our chat box. So our first question will be directed to Dr. Max. The question is, most top universities view pay-to-play type of research and publication as a negative thing, as they give more importance to opportunities earned with merit. So what are your thoughts on the same?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. I would say that they don't see it negatively, so they dig deeper, okay? So when a young student comes, they show that they have published a paper, the admission officers will start to dig, right? And believe me that for somebody that has a little bit of experience, it will take just maybe 2 or 3 minutes to understand if the student has really worked on that paper or no. Now, this is why it's important to choose programs that are high quality. So I also personally talk with students that were being assigned to project, have been working on papers, but more on a passive way, right? And they didn't learn much on the way. So what we try to do at Sapiente is to really engage the student. So the student has to do the legwork. The student has to do the literature research. The student has to write the paper. The student has to ask the question. What the mentor is doing this high-level senior guidance, okay? Introducing the tools, introducing the way of thinking. So trying to refine the critical thinking skills of the student, right? So when the student is engaged actively in doing research, then there is a very strong difference in the output. You can see that the output is much more curated than other programs where typically students are basically just passive learners. There are even some, I heard about some predatory actually programs where basically somebody else writing the paper. So this is it's very bad. So if you go to a top university with a research that has been written by somebody else, the admission officer, they will find out in a few minutes. And this is a negative. But you can consider this type of program that we are providing like some other form of structured tuition, right? When you engage with a mentor, you engage with a tutor, or you engage with an internship, some kind of lab experiences, right? So we're trying to provide the same experience here. And plus our mentors, being all of them from top institutions like Oxford, Cambridge, and so on, they also have very strong ethical boundaries. So they will never allow somebody else to write the paper. So they want the student to do the work. And this is how research work. High quality research this is how the way it works, right? There should be a strong author, the first author, that would be the student. And then there could be the mentor and the research assistant that are supporting the student. But the student must do most of the work. And when you present your paper this way, believe me that there is a very strong difference, and top university will easily understand this.
Thank you, Max. And the next question is also to you. Is publication appropriate for younger students age 13?
Yes, so actually some of our programs are really designed also for younger students. So those are students, of course, that still have to learn a lot, but they can already start to work on some form of papers. Of course, for this type of research, we typically publish in entry-level journals. So you have to consider this like a very first experience for the student in research. And we typically recommend this to be the first step, right? So the student does one first publication when he's young, 13, 14. We have students that are even younger. We had, I think our record was a student that was 8 years old. He was extremely bright, extremely smart. He's doing a great job. He's currently enrolled, actually. But yeah, so we follow also young students. And it's also important to see this trajectory, right? So if the students start young, 13 years old, 14 years old, first publication, and then after a few years, before applying, maybe 16, 17 years old, they work on an extension of this work. This really show depth of thinking and depth of research. So yeah, just to answer the question, yes, we also support younger students.
Thank you for the detailed answer, Dr. Max. There's the next question to Mr. Omer. Do you have a partner in the UK universities or anywhere in the world that is in the top 50 QS world ranking university?
Thank you, Raksha. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your question. Well, two of our partners were in the top 15 at 25 ranking, St. Andrews Durham, but just fell out a bit. They're in 70s. But that said, even though the two partners work around 70s, 80s, we do have students who we help out. So just to clarify, because this is a very good question, can we help students if they want to go to top 50 QS university? For example, they want to go to King's or Imperial or Oxford. Yes, we can. And yes, we have students go there. So we're not bound that we will only guide students to university we partner with. We're more than happy to help students who, with the university we're not partnering with, because at the end of the day, of course, yeah, it's a commercial thing, but at the same time, we want to help students who are deserving students going to good universities. So absolutely, we don't have official partnership with top 450 universities, but we work with them. We have a track record of sending students there and can certainly help you out there. So please do get in touch.
Perfect, thank you. And also to Omer, why must we choose your services and what outcomes and results can we expect from using your services?
I love this question. I had this since like 2005, every exhibition and all that. And this is a very valid question, even more valid now since we started, because like I mentioned, people have access to information internet. So a few things. One, we don't charge for our services. So it's a win-win situation for a student. Rather than applying directly and having to follow up themselves and not being able to connect with the right person, right department, we do all the hard work for you, free of cost. So you're not paying anything for it. Secondly, yes, you can apply yourself. You can do the whole application processing, everything. But in terms of following up with the right person at the university, helping you in the post-application tasks, accommodation, visa, which to some people might be not very important tasks, but they are, in some regions. So we help in that as well as part of our whole thing. So I think collectively the services we offer, and because we don't charge them, is the reason a lot of students come to us, because they say, okay, you're not charging for it and you're doing extra work for us. And one thing I'll add here is, which I should have mentioned in the slide, that our journey is not just from counseling to visa and then the student goes off and we're in touch. I'm in touch with students who went through me 20 years ago, and now I'm getting cards of their weddings and they're having their first children and all that, and some got married to each other in the same university. So it's a network we build. So even when your child goes, we make sure when they land there, if they have any issues there within the first, second, third year, we're there to support them. So our job actually finishes never, to be honest. So yeah, that's why I guess you should use our services.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Omer. That was really
You're welcome.
insightful. Our next question is to Nadeem. How can young students avoid overusing AI, and how can they use AI to learn more without being negatively affected?
It's a great question, and I know how many parents are struggling with this right now that have children. I have 3 daughters, and even I am starting to think about how much information they get from there, Just a quick point back to the question that was directed at Max earlier, when someone, I believe, asked, should or could students be publishing between 13 and 16? I think whilst probably most of the people here are focused more on universities and applications than the world of work at this point, the point I made about starting to do things, build online presence, if in 5 years' time they saw that a child had published a paper at the age of 15 or 16, that's going to put them ahead of others that just, quite frankly, were not doing it at that age. So just my 2 cents on that. But yeah, look, with AI, it's very easy for children now to just go and ask a question, ask AI, and then quickly read the answer. The discipline I try to do, or try to have with my children, is get them to write down specific questions before they go and ask the AI. feeds into this whole depth of thinking and all the different questions that could come out of the topic. What does this mean? How does it connect? The more niche the questions they can ask before they take it to AI will probably show up very different answers. We've all been there when we use it ourselves. You add some more context to the AI. I said, great catch. I didn't think of this. With all of these ways of thinking, the good discipline is to apply that depth of thinking and thinking in systems about a topic. Write down a lot of your questions before you take it to AI. It's encouraging that creativity and that question and research thinking skill set before they just put the generic topic on AI. That has been used to good effect in my world. I hope that helps.
Perfect. Thank you, Nadeem. We have one more question for Max. So my son studies at Jumeirah College, Dubai, and aims to get through Oxbridge, Imperial, UCL King's, etc. So he aims to become a physician, scientist, having interest in neuroscience and neurology. So what kind of research would help him to pursue his dream?
Yeah, so I think what we do typically at Sapiente is the following. So we get the student enrolls and we collect all the information about the student, right? So we want to know what is the topic of interest, what's the age of the student, if the student has previous experience and so on. So once we have collected all this information, what we do, we go to different mentors, right? And we ask the mentors, can you propose a research project for this particular student that is interested in this particular topic that is, I don't know, that's 15 years old, and so on. So we will collect different proposals from different mentors, and then we will have the family to pick the proposal that is the most appropriate for the student, right? So we want really to do what we call bespoke education, right? So we try to adapt our services, our research proposal to the student profile. And this is very different from other providers that typically don't follow this route. So they typically just assign the student, throw the student to the mentor, and that's it. In our case, don't do that. So we want really to build a mini team made by the mentor, the student, research assistant, that helps the student to achieve the goal. So if the goal of your son in this case is to be accepted in one of these top universities, for instance, a possible path could be to start, if he's young, for instance, he could start with a literature review, first of all, of the field that he's interested in, then to pick a very specific topic, ask a research question, and then start to investigate this particular topic. And this, of course, can take months. Now, if the student instead is already a bit senior, is about to apply, has already some more in-depth knowledge about the topic, then we can already go a bit deeper into the topic and ask very, very specific questions. And we have mentors, especially in medicine, neuroscience, and neurology, that are specialized in very specific research areas. That could, and it's really important for the student, right? Pick a specific area of interest and show that it's digging right in that specific niche. This is very important when you go and you for a university to show that the student is an expert in that specific niche. He became an expert after publishing one paper in that specific niche.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Max. Just to give an overview, apparently his son did write an article on altruism and did share it with his school teacher. So
that's perfect. So this means that there is already something, right? So there is already a base, and it's already here possible maybe to start with something a little bit more advanced if the student already has a first experience, 15 years old. So in that case, I would recommend already to look at slightly more advanced topics, and maybe try to aim also for still college level journals, peer reviewed, but maybe already a bit higher level, let's say.
thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope the questions have been answered, and I hope you have taken away some key points from our webinar. So I'm going to give back to Joanna. You can take over from here.
All right, everyone, as we come to an end to today's webinar, I just want to sincerely say thank you to our speaker, Dr. Massimiliano Patacchiola, Omer Mirza, and Nadeem Lone, for sharing their expertise and valuable insights with us this evening. So I would also like to thank everyone for taking the time to join with us. We hope today's discussions have given you a clear understanding of how the student can strengthen their university application beyond academic grades and prepare themselves for the opportunities that lie ahead. And if you'd like to learn more about DRN or Sapiente Education's research and mentorship programs, If you have any other question, feel free to reach out to our team. We are more than happy to answer all of your questions. All right. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We wish you a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you again at our future events. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Bye.